Instead, we have the opportunity to make a habit of empathy, to recognize ourselves in each other.
So the question is, how does empathy play, what part does it play in Organizing for America? I think the biggest thing about empathy is actually, like if I had to define it myself, standing in somebody else's shoe and trying to understand somebody that's different from you, what predicament they are in, feeling what they're feeling. And if you can do that, you have this human connection that makes you want to not just understand, but act in a way that that can help them in some way, or help each other. Like I grew up with a Catholic upbringing, and so the main thing for me about empathy is like one of the core ideas, which is to do unto others. And so if you don't understand empathy, there's no way you understand that kind of guiding rule in your life. And I think that what Obama does is, during the campaign and now, is that he's trying to get people to empathize as much as possible. And like the main tool that we use is like our story of self, where we talk about why something is important to us, like healthcare, or why we came out to campaign for him or vote for him. And that's basically by talking about those personal stories, it's the values from those stories that are distilled into the things that we have in common. And I think that that's the whole thing. Once you get people to feel that they have something in common, then they can empathize with each other. And so, for example, if you think of a powerful Congress woman or a man or a powerful senator, they don't have to empathize with people because they don't see their constituents. They only see powerful interest groups and being on a junket and going to endless fundraisers because they have to raise money to get their message out on the news or in commercials. But what the president wants us to do is make these personal connections to people to make change, and we did that in all the swing states by knocking on people's doors and talking to them about issues that were important to them on their porches. And he still wants us to do that. I think people had said that I didn't really agree with what some people had said, that he sounds more like a politician now. And less like a person who's empathetic like he was during the campaign. I think he does that all the time. He is empathetic. He has a lot of speeches that don't make primetime because things that make primetime are angry comments or outrageous comments or really loaded comments that are going to get people angry. And I've seen a lot of his speeches, and I think in a lot of ways, because you don't see it, it's mischaracterized as, the president has changed. I mean, if anything, I kind of cut him some slack because he's just surrounded by people and problems and other politicians, so maybe I cut him a little slack for that. I think if he were hanging around with us, he'd sound like himself. And actually, we were on a conference call with him the other day, and he took questions, and he just sounded like one of the people. And it was because people asked him personal questions about what they were going through, and he answered them as he would as an individual. And I think that's why people like him and are moved by him still. So, that's part of one of our biggest roles, is to make sure that we humanize our relationships with our congresspeople and with citizens. When we go into areas, they can't say, these bleeding heart liberals, or these we're not demons, we're just regular people, just like you folks, and we need to do things to work together. If anything, nobody can say that he doesn't try to work with people that are different. Nobody can say that. He's like the most courageous person when it comes to that, because most people would say, they're giving him hell, quit on him. He doesn't do that. I think that he's incredibly courageous, and I think he believes, and it's because he believes in empathizing with other people that aren't like him.
The second was that President Obama spoke a lot about empathy during the campaign. He spoke a lot about empathy, that somehow this has not come through in his speeches and pronouncements since the election. A very sort of close to this is that he introduced himself as an agent of change. And instead, as one of our members put it, he became a policy monk. And there was a particular concern about the role of Rahm Emanuel, that Rahm Emanuel is too much of a politician, that perhaps he doesn't have some of the values that the president has.
And for the next 15 minutes, you're going to do the same thing? Yes, solutions. What can we do to deal with a lot of these issues here?
Yeah, our group came up with a number of different solutions. One, again, with respect to the value of empathy, that came up in terms of trying to re-inject it into the administration and how it pursues its policy.
And OFA.
I'm sorry?
And OFA.
And OFA. So we can have a role in trying to influence that change within the administration, and while seeking support from the base and our fellow citizens.
But what about some of the things that we're doing? You know, like basically what we're talking about is mobilizing people. You know, we're mobilizing people, doing X, Y, Z.
Well, I think the empathy is really important in that regard.
Okay, so how do we show more empathy? How are we doing that?
You know, it's a contentious problem, and there's no easy answer to it. You have to debate the issues and somehow have a consensus.
Okay. Actually, she had her hand up first.
Well, I think that if you could get speakers to go and to speak at various gatherings, you know, like the Lions Club and different student organizations, the senior centers, like we said before, but there's other places you can go and do that.
Right.
You can get people to speak personally about what happened to them, say, you know, someone who came just back from Afghanistan, or someone who was victimized by not being able to get health care, and you know, and what that was like for them, and how that's changed because of healthcare reform.
Right.
I think that's the kind of thing that people really creates change in people in a very personal
yeah,
way.
and that was one of the things that they were saying, like communicating a personal story of how something is affecting you.
Exactly.
Okay,
that applies to
and we can do that with letters. We can do that with forums. We can do that with speeches at rallies, right?
speeches in already existing
Okay.
places.
Okay, great. So lack of bipartisanship. How do we do that?
We tried.
We tried. Okay.
I had just in terms of like a solution for the empathy part, was like on the list of respect and so forth that you had up there. It could have been empathy, could have been up there as a way to kind of get the word out about it, make it aware, make people aware. In terms of bipartisanship, about 3 weeks ago, I went to the Republican state convention in San Jose, and I went and I actually sat down with Republicans and interviewed them about empathy. I asked them, what are your important values that are important to you, and how do they relate to empathy? So it's a matter of reaching out to Republicans and talking to them about empathy and speaking to that
We
part.
did that all during the campaign, I feel like, and I feel like the empower, include, and those messages actually are messages of empathy.
I think so. There's a great deal of empathy here. It's just how can we deepen it? So I think we're on the right path. It's just deepening
so
it.
how do we get it out in the public?
So
Because there are those stories, personal stories, but how do we get them out in the public?